Hey everyone, John here from the Four Brewers podcast, and I am back with another beer. And today we're drinking something new, something old. This is Newcastle Brown Ale, which is not a new beer at all. It's been around for a very long time. This is actually the first beer I had that wasn't Bud Light or Coors Light that got me interested into beer, or got me interested in beer. I was at a Carrot Top show. Yeah, Carrot Top, the comedian that works in Vegas now. He was in Anaheim at the Grove, I think. I think it's called the Grove. It's off of Catella on the 57. And one of my buddies was like, hey, you should try this beer. This is a different kind of beer. And I did, and I loved it. It was good. Even though I think now Newcastle is kind of a garbage beer, at least the prior version. I liked it back then, and it got me started with exploring beer. So this is the new Newcastle. If you look at the bottle and label, there are some significantly different things about this beer. One is the branding, obviously. It's got a modernized look to it, although I thought the old look looked classical and, I liked it. But this does look good. It looks more 21st century, I'd say. And the other major difference with the bottle is it's a brown bottle. It's not a clear bottle. Newcastle is always in a clear bottle, which clear bottles in beer, you don't want that. Unless you have that special, I don't know if it's an enzyme or something that they add to the beer to make it so the hops don't skunk because of the UV light that comes through. That's why you use brown bottles, is to block UV light. And but yeah, now it's in a brown bottle, which I think it should be in a brown bottle. It's more appropriate, and it still keeps it classic because it's still in a bottle. But yeah, and the other cool thing about this is Lagunitas actually is brewing it now out of Petaluma and Chicago, and they kind of tweaked the recipe. I don't know what that means. I don't know if they took the recipe and just adapted it for American stuff, or they took it and they just completely reworked it to kind of modernize the beer. But Lagunitas is making this beer now, and there's a whole campaign going on with this beer about how it's the new Newcastle and teaching an old dog new tricks or something. And you may be wondering why Lagunitas is making this beer. It's because Lagunitas is now owned by Heineken, and Heineken also owns the Newcastle brand and the beer. So let's open this up and check it out. So I'm going to start by saying I have had this prior to this review. It's the reason I'm doing the review is because I thought it was noteworthy enough to actually speak about. When I mentioned this to Jason and the other guys on the podcast that I got it and I was trying it, Jason asked if it still tastes like pennies and brown sugar, and it doesn't taste like pennies and brown sugar. It's a step above that. So let's get into it. Again, it's a brown ale, so it's got a nice dark red, brown-ish. If you hold it to the light, it's definitely got burgundy notes to it, but just looking at it straight on, it's a brown ale. Looks nice. It's got an off-white head that looks pretty creamy. It's not immediately dissipating, which I love that. I can't remember the last time I've had the old recipe Newcastle, but for some reason I'm thinking the head would just instantly dissipate. And this is not. This is hanging out for quite a bit, so that's a good sign. So let's see what it smells like. Okay, so the thing that I like most about this is the yeast character actually is the prominent aroma. You get kind of that, English like yeast estery kind of thing. It's a little fruity, but working with the darker malts to make it kind of like a creamy, chocolatey kind of fruit aroma. I think it smells fantastic, actually, for being Newcastle. Like, it smells like they actually put some thought into this and made it true to the brown ale style. You know what I mean? It's not just like, oh, it's brown, see, it's a brown ale, and then it's just a watery mess. Or it's, pennies and brown sugar. It actually smells like a craft beer, if that sounds, is that sacrilege to say it smells like a craft beer, even though it's not? It smells really good. You still get a lot of, sweet aroma on the nose. Like, it smells like, you do get, like, a chocolatey sweetness on the nose. But I think that sweetness is also the yeast character coming through with this beer. It's not bad. at all. It does smell like Newcastle though, but like it just smells like a modern Newcastle. So I think it smells great. Let's see what it tastes like. So it tastes fine. I think it is a bit on the thin side, but it is a brown ale, and I don't drink a whole lot of brown ale. It tastes good. Like it's not super sweet. It's not like oxidized. It doesn't taste old like you'd expect Newcastle to taste because it just sits on shelves. It actually tastes like a pretty clean, decent brown ale for it being a mass market brown ale. I think it tastes pretty good. Like I would buy this again happily because I think it's nice, and it's only like 4.7% alcohol. It's a tasty, like darker ale that you can enjoy that is still pretty light alcohol. Yeah, again, I think the yeast really is showcased well on the nose and the flavor with this beer, and it works perfectly with the malts. Like it just tastes like a good brown ale. I mean, it is on the thin side, but I don't think brown ales are supposed to be that heavy anyway. So I think it's great. Like Lagunitas did a really good job, like revamping this beer, not only with the branding, but with the recipe formulation and the execution. So I would recommend just buy a 6-pack if you haven't had Newcastle in a long time, because you might like it, you might enjoy it. I'm not saying like buy the shit out of it and support Heineken and all that other crap, because I would rather not. But if you've had Newcastle in the past and you want to check this out to see if it's any better, if it's changed, or if it's the same old, pennies and brown sugar, it's worth checking out, buying a 6-pack. So thanks for watching this video. We'll see you next time.